Welcome to the Restorative Yoga Workshop. Now, first I want to clarify this is a workshop, not a class. I'm going to begin by giving you a super brief physiological discussion around why restorative yoga is so important for us to do, especially now. And then I'm actually going to take you through a few of the poses and really help you learn how to set yourself up to be comfortable in the poses, how to adjust and modify based on your needs, as well as I'll talk about some of the props that you want to have on hand. So, if you're ready, let's talk restorative yoga. So I am a firm believer that this is the type of yoga that 98% of us here in the US in particular, I can't speak for other cultures, but definitely here in the US, we need to be focused on. And the reason for that is it helps calm the nervous system. Okay, so stick with me for a sec here. All kinds of yoga help us, right? It helps connect us to our higher self. It helps us relax. Let me rephrase. Most types of yoga do that. But what we really want from our yoga practice is we want something that calms us, that balances our life, that brings more moderation into our life. Now, for most of us, again, especially here in the US, our life is pretty chaotic and frenetic, especially right now after the year that we've had. And we live a more stressed out life. When we get to the yoga mat, the most popular yoga here in the US is the power yoga, the strength yoga, the get a workout yoga. And all that does is add to that frenetic lifestyle, right? Yes, absolutely. You come off the mat feeling better. You've had a workout. It feels good. And it is also added to the vroom, vroom, vroom that's going on inside of your body, right? Most of us need restorative when we get to the yoga mat to just relax and calm down. Now that said, I do want to add that there is a small percentage of people out there who need to get a little light lit underneath their butts, right? Like your tendency is to just lay on the couch, watch TV, and hang out and not get yourself started. And you need that power yoga in order to get yourself balanced, right? You need that to balance your life. And I will tell you, neither side is good. Whether or not you're a go, 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 which is really honored here in the US, that burns you out. I am definitely one who can speak to that. If you're sitting on the couch, also not good. Neither are good. We honor this boom, 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 like it's a good thing to be going, but it's not. We want moderation because moderation gives us a joyful life. It gives us a balance of relaxation and it gives us success. It's just really powerful. Yoga can help you get that. So yoga can help you balance whether you're here or you're here. Now that said, I will tell you a lot of people have the natural tendency to need a little fire lit underneath them, but they live this lifestyle because that's what's honored here in the US and that makes them super out of balance. So I want you to just take a moment and think about your life and think, what is it I need? And I will tell you that I still think everybody needs at least one restorative yoga class a month. At least. At bare minimum. And I teach it monthly at my online studio and I also teach it monthly to my regular students because I'm a firm believer we all need this. And it's interesting because I will also share that when I first started doing restorative yoga every month, the last week of the month is restorative. I probably started it 10, 12 years ago. There was a lot of resistance in my class. People wanted to come to class to learn something new, to really, deepen their own home practice. And within a year, it took a little bit, but now it's like a cult class. They will not miss their class. They schedule around the class. They make sure it's in their calendar. They get to their restorative yoga class. So you really start to see the benefit of it once you've done it for a while. So I want to talk a little bit about the physiology behind restorative and why it's so powerful. So yoga is supposed to balance our nervous system. Okay, our nervous system is our brain and our spine. That's the central nervous system, and it controls everything in the body. Okay, now there is a part of our nervous system called the autonomic nervous system. And that controls all of the automatic things that go on in our life. So it controls your heart rate, your blood pressure, your breathing, your brain function, all of those things. And there are two parts to the autonomic nervous system. There's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. The sympathetic controls the stress response. The parasympathetic controls the relaxation response. Okay, these two systems, the parasympathetic and sympathetic, are like a balance scale, okay? They're both functioning all the time in our body, and just one is always predominant. And I will tell you that I'm going to say 99% of the time, but probably 100% of the time, your stress response, the sympathetic system, is dominant. What that means is, quick review of the stress response if you're not familiar with it, the stress response is the body's way of responding to a life-threatening event. Okay? The traditional way we look at it is you've got a saber-toothed tiger coming at you, and you have a fight or flight response. So your body responds to protect itself, okay, to either flee or to fight. So to do that, the body shunts all of your blood from your internal place out to your arms and legs so that you can run or you can fight. It increases your blood pressure so that you have the energy to do it. It releases adrenaline so you have more energy again. Adrenaline is a hormone that stimulates all of this. Your brain is on high alert. You are ready to go. Then you either fight or you flee. That uses up all that energy so that you go back down to that relaxation. That's what we're supposed to do with the stress response. Okay? It's supposed to be a huge jump and then a release down to zero. However, in today's day and age, especially in the last year, what happens is we get this surge and then we may come down a little, but we don't go back to relaxation. And then the next thing happens, and it might be a little thing, but because you're already stimulated, it becomes a bigger thing, right? And maybe you come down a little and you go back up. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being relaxation, 10 being that total stressed out, maybe you lived your life regularly around a 3 to 5. I usually find people are between 4 and 6, maybe 7. This last year has been a 10. And maybe you got down to a 7, but a little thing happened, you were a 10. And we've lived there for so long, and this is true for life outside of a pandemic as well, just maybe not quite as dramatic. But after a while, a 7 or 8 will start to feel like a 3 or 4 because it's so relative, right? You actually feel like you're relaxed, but you're far from relaxed. And we need to reset the nervous system to a lower level. Now, how do you do that? Let's go back to that balance scale. Remember, you have the sympathetic or the stress response. You have the parasympathetic or the relaxation response. Think of the relaxation response as the off button to the stress response, but there isn't really an off button, okay? Really what you need to do is turn the relaxation response on to make it predominant. Now, we have to do this with intention. It doesn't happen automatically, okay? Unless you fight or flee, this does not happen automatically. Does that make sense? It's probably the most important thing I can teach you right here and right now is you can't move into the relaxation response without doing it with intention, doing something that helps your system, your relaxation response, turn on. Now, there are common fallacies around relaxation. So people often think 3 things help them relax: watching TV or vegging out, however you do that, drinking alcohol, and sleeping. Now, nothing wrong with any of those things, okay? I do love my glass of wine. I do love vegging out in front of a movie, but know that this is not happening when you do that. It feels like it is, but all those 3 things do is numb you. They basically numb you wherever it is you are. You get numb, so you're not really thinking about it anymore. But it's not physiologically changing your body. And that's what restorative yoga can do. Restorative yoga can help you shift into that relaxation, as well as yin, some hatha yoga, but I'm telling you, power yoga will not make this shift. Okay? You may love it, and that's great. Periodically, we really need to do this. Okay? So, let's talk a little bit about some of the things you want to think about in restorative when you're doing a restorative yoga class. You want to make sure that you are really comfortable. Okay, these are the tenets, if you will, of relaxation, of being able to do this. You have to feel comfortable. If you have a part of you that's like, it's kind of hurting, your body will actually stay in that stress response because that keeps you on alert, right? Because you're not relaxed. The body has to feel like on a primitive level, like it is relaxed. So you need to be totally supported. And those are things that I'm going to share with you in this class. I'm going to share with you in this workshop how you can make sure that you're comfortable. You also need to be warm enough. Okay, so layers, lots of layers. I have students who actually have restorative paraphernalia. So they have chenille gloves and super soft warm socks. They want to feel comfy and snuggled in. I'll also show you the blanket that I have. It's a very light blanket. If you're going to cover yourself over, then you want a very light blanket, not a super heavy one, because you also want to be symmetrical. You cannot relax. The body can't relax unless you have symmetry. And a heavy blanket might cause asymmetry, which I'll talk about in a moment. But you want to make sure that the right side is doing the same thing as the left side, including like the mat hits you in the same place on your arm on each side. That makes a difference. The room also needs to be darkened, so bright light will keep you stimulated. If you can't turn the lights down, then a light eye bag over your eyes, which I talk about in the workshop as well, will definitely help. See if I've missed any. Hands and feet need to be warm. Those are the most important things in order for you to fully relax. Okay, so hands and feet for sure. And you probably notice that when you try and go to sleep at night. You can't go to sleep if your feet are cold. So that's really important in restorative yoga as well. Now, I also love essential oils. Essential oils can be a huge benefit to this. I feel like we need every help we can get. Now, I use Young Living essential oils. I only use those. If you want more information, let me know. Get a diffuser going, make a spray with some calming oils, just wear the oils, breathe them in, whatever that helps you get them into your body. It's really, really powerful. Okay, so if you're ready, let's go to the yoga mat. And again, this is a class, so you can do it with me if you'd like to kind of experiment as I show you, and just pause the video as you go along so you can play with it, or you can just watch and learn and then join me in live class and do the restorative with me and with my students. All right, I'll meet you on the mat. All right, let's get started. So first we're going to talk about props that you'll want to have on hand. This is definitely known as the class for props because there are so many that you might like to have available. But I'm also going to share some variations for you so you don't feel like I don't want you to feel like you have to have everything. So let's first talk about the blankets. So you need to have support. That's the whole point of this class. You need something that supports you. So having heavy blankets is absolutely crucial. This is the one thing you can't do this class without. Now, I have two different kinds. Well, I guess three. I'll talk about this other one last. Two of the blankets that I have are wool blankets. These are those traditional army wool blankets bought at surplus stores back in the day. They are fantastic because they're very heavy. They're very supportive, right? They don't squish when you sit on them. Like this one squishes right down. There's no support. This gives you support. The challenge with it is it can be itchy. Mine aren't for some reason. Probably because they're so old. Years and years and years, decades with those. And that's the nice thing too, by the way, is they last forever. We've used them for moving, like we've used them for all sorts of things, which is really, they're handy blankets to have. Then the other kind of blanket that I recommend having is a heavy, these are those Mexican woven cotton blankets. Now, these have become sort of a dime a dozen on Amazon. Polyester ones will not give you the support that you need. You want a full cotton one. They are more expensive, not a lot more expensive, but worth every penny. The others, I find people get so frustrated, they just throw them out and go back and buy these. What I would recommend, you want 2 for sure, if not 3 total blankets. My preference is 2 wool and 1 cotton to have on hand. Now, my last blanket that I have, so I talked about symmetry being really important. You need to feel symmetrical in order for you to fully relax. The problem with having a blanket over you, because you also need to be warm, remember, so people often cover themselves in their poses, but the problem is it's hard to be symmetrical. Like the blanket covers you a little more over here, it's a little heavier over here, there's a fold over here. These little things add up and will prevent you from deeply relaxing. However, I really like to be covered. I love that feeling of a little bit of weight on me, and it feels comforting. So what I recommend is if you want to be covered, a lot of my students use, like I talked about, you will use mittens, heavy gloves, a jacket, a hoodie so they can put their hood up. If you want a blanket over you, get one of these really light, fluffy blankets. My kids are really into these. This is actually a hand-me-down for my daughter. They're heavenly. They're super soft. They feel very snuggly, and there's not a lot of weight to them, so they won't create as much asymmetry. Right? It's not as hard to feel symmetrical with this blanket. I love it. Now, other things you might want to have. You've probably seen yoga bolsters. Okay, I don't recommend this. Okay, I have one, obviously. I have had this, I'm going to say, for 25 years, maybe longer. And I think I've used it 7 or 8 times. Um, the problem with a blanket or a bolster over a blanket is it's not malleable. This is pretty solid, right? With a blanket, you can kind of tuck a little bit here, shift it a little bit there, give yourself a little bit more over here. You can fold the blankets to be in the shape of the bolster, which is what I'm going to show you today. That said, there's a couple of ways that you might want to use the bolster that you would enjoy, and if you have one, don't feel that you need to get rid of it because it can be handy. Absolutely. I still have mine. I still use it periodically. You also might want to have like a hand towel, washcloths. These are ways that you can kind of adjust and give yourself a little bit of added support. You also might like to have an eye bag handy. Eye bags are great to help you relax more deeply. Just make sure it's a lightweight eye bag. It's not a super heavy one. Those heavy ones they're finding can cause damage on the cornea over time, a long time. So you want to just use a really lightweight eye bag. You can also just put a sock or a washcloth over your eyes to help you relax. I also recommend essential oils for sure for this. Anything you can do to help yourself relax. I get my diffuser going with some very calming oils. I like to create sprays out of them and spray my body as I go along to help me relax a little bit more. All right, so enough said about the props. So I want to start with something that we commonly do in our yoga practice, especially Shavasana, and that is propping the knees up to release the lower back. We're going to do that a lot in a restorative yoga class, and I want to show you an option to help with the blood flow through your legs. So what people often talk about is putting a roll underneath your knees, which is fine if it's a short amount of time, but in restorative poses, we're building up to be able to hold for 15, 20 minutes. And you actually have an artery that runs behind your knees. And if you put a roll underneath your knees for a long period of time, it starts to stop the blood flow to your legs. Not going to be dangerous. Your legs are fine, but it does keep you from fully relaxing. So an option for this is to take a blanket and triple fold it. Okay, I'm going to be sharing all sorts of ways to fold. This is the triple fold, so it's flat, and you're going to bring it up underneath your thighs. So you can see my knees are hanging off, so they're not, being blocked, if you will. And as you come back, you can see it's going to give you really nice support without that blocking at the knees. And this is the way I have my students all the time support their knees. I just have them triple fold. We don't do the roll under the knees at all. So that's an option that you might want to think about as we go through poses. Okay, the first pose I want to share with you, and I'm going to take you through about 5 or 6 really common restorative poses because I want to teach you how you can modify them for yourself, how to make sure that you're in them well, how you can adjust. So the first one's called Mountain Brook, and it is a back bending pose. And it is a back bending over a plank fold. So this is like the starting point of all of our folds. Okay, it's about 2 feet by 1.5 feet. I'm terrible with dimensions, so approximately this size. And we're going to fold it lengthwise. And this is called the plank fold. Okay, and you're going to set it down, and it's going to hit this top fold. So I actually have the folded edge. That's the firmer edge over the loose end, which isn't going to give you as much firmness. That is going to hit right about at the base of your shoulder blades, which is about where your bra strap is if you happen to wear a bra. And it's also where back bend over roll hits if you happen to do that pose. But with this flat surface, you're going to have a little bit more support. It'll be more relaxing. You're going to lay over it. Hope you can see this. So that, if you can see, my hips are down on the other side of it. My shoulders release down. My shoulders are actually down, okay? And here's the thing. Once you're in a pose, adjust. You know, kind of play around with it. Say, okay, does that feel good or will this feel good? I kind of feel like I went up too high. Oh, that's much better. What you don't want to feel, I'm going to see if I can show this to you so you can really see it, is that you're crowded in the shoulders. So see, they're not touching. You want them touching. The goal in restorative poses is to be fully supported. So really the ultimate goal is that nothing is dangling. Okay, there's no shoulder that's dangling off the floor. There's no, your knee isn't dangling, because when it dangles, the body kind of holds. You want to be fully supported so the body can go and relax. And this is all very subconscious. This is what the body does naturally without you even thinking about it. So the more we can get it supported and feeling relaxed, the more relaxed you'll be. So in this one, you want to get those shoulders all the way down on to the ground, but then play with it. So my shoulders are definitely on the ground, but I think, gosh, it just doesn't feel right. And I scooched down about 1/2 inch. Shoulders are still down. And it was like, oh yeah, that's it. That's where I want to be. Now, the other thing you want to think about as you do these poses is you want to make sure you're feeling like it's the right height. Like you can adjust the height too. I always say that restorative is an art, not a science. There's no firm rules. So while this is perfect for probably 80% of my students, some need to go down. And what I do is I just open it up and turn it around, right? So now it's smaller. They sit here, they have a smaller edge, just make it as crisp as you can, and they can be there. I have other students who are really tall who are like, yeah, this is good, but I don't know, I kind of feel like I need a little bit more. Bam, now it's a little bit more. And that's for the taller student, right? And the shorter one might need, or the tighter one might need something a little bit lower. So just pay attention for yourself and see what fits for you. So the next pose we're going to do is the classic restorative yoga pose, which is Supta Baddha Konasana. This is the pose that happens in every single one of my restorative yoga classes, or I have a mutiny on my hands. My students love it. So for this one, you'll need 2 or 3 blankets. If you have 3, you certainly can use all 3. And you're going to take it and fold it into that plank fold that we just did for Mountain Brook, right? So that long. And if you have a second one, and I'm going to use this one so you can see it really well when I show you what we're going to do with it. If you have another one, you can put it on top. Now, this is where I'm going to lay across, okay? So it's going to line our spine, and I've got some modifications to show you. Hopefully you can see this. I have staircased this a little bit. This is a really common place for you to modify if you need to, and I'll show you what I'm talking about once we're in it. And I can't even tell you that if you're tight in your back, you'll need to be here versus here or vice versa. I'm telling you, everyone is different, and I'm so surprised what people feel good in. So feel free to adjust this or go down a blanket, and you might feel better going down. Then you're going to take your last blanket and you're actually going to open it up from that starting place. So now we have about a 3-foot end, and we're going to roll it into a really tight roll, okay? All right, so this is what it looks like getting into it. You're going to sit on the floor right in front of your roll, and then you're going to place your feet in Baddha Konasana. That is soles of the feet together. Place the blanket on the feet. And this blanket is supposed to support the thighs. So it's not tucked, which is what a lot of people do. That's the most common error I see. It's instead resting underneath your thighs. So it's supporting the thighs. So you shouldn't feel an inner thigh stretch at all. It shouldn't feel like Baddha Konasana. Then you're going to lay back. Now, this is where you might need to adjust a little bit. Your hips are right up next to the blanket support, but you're not on top of it. And you might be slightly away just to elongate the lower back a little bit. Play with it. Find where your lower back feels a really nice release. And then this top blanket, you're going to give yourself a pillow. And you either do that by tucking it under or over. Do each one. See which one feels the best. For me, under usually feels the best. I do each way every time because sometimes I want to go over. It should feel just really supportive, like it's supporting the neck and also elongating it with a little bit of traction. And then the arms come down by your side, turn the palms up, draw your shoulders under, and then you can lift the hips up and elongate your back. So if I was with you, what I do is I'll grab people's hips and I pull. So if you can just imagine elongating and setting them down, and if you're like, God, it just doesn't feel right, then make those adjustments in the blanket that I shared with you. Pull it closer, pull it further away, go down to one blanket, get a little closer. That's usually the answer, by the way, closer, not further away, which seems counterintuitive, but it's true. And then you just release. You want to feel totally supported. Sometimes you might feel you need to do a little tucking of the blanket to give yourself a little bit more support. And if you feel any tweaking in the back, you definitely want to make adjustments. Okay? All right. Now, next one we're going to do is we're going to talk forward folds. And forward folds are a little tricky in restorative classes, and I'll share why in a moment. So the challenge with forward folds in restorative is if your hamstrings aren't really flexible, it's hard to get into that fully supported position. So we often see photos of people, getting support laying across their legs, but this is my pose. This is as far as I can go. It's just torture, to be honest. I cannot relax. It's very stressful. It's not calming for me at all. So I want to share with you an option you can do if someone is doing some sort of forward fold, and then I'm going to give you a good forward fold where you can be totally supported. So, and that is to use a chair. Now, this is a partial solution, okay? So you can use a chair because then you can feel at least that you're resting, right? Like your head is resting. The problem is the whole front of your body is still suspended. Remember I was talking about how the support is really important for you to really relax. So you're not getting that. It's a good in between, and it's a good compromise, shall we say. But it's not fully relaxing. And most of my students have really tight hamstrings. So I generally don't do these kinds of forward folds for this reason, but if you are in a different class, then that is an option for you. What I do for forward folds in my classes is supported child's pose because it is really relaxing. It gives you all the benefits of the forward fold without any of that angst. So what you do is take your blankets and you fold them into those plank folds. And here's where a bolster would come in handy for sure, because higher is usually better, but not always. So you may not have enough blankets to make it super relaxing, but I've got an option for that too. And what you do is you place it between your knees and then you come down and relax. Now, You don't want the elbows back here because that, can you see it holds tension in the shoulders? You want to lift those arms up so your shoulders really relax all the way down. And you just snuggle down into the bolster. Deep belly breathing, bringing it right into the back body and relaxing. So good, right? Now, if you can't get deep enough, again, this is where a bolster could come in handy. That actually does feel a little bit better for me. Or you can do Ashavasana, and you just bring your legs back behind you and lay over the blanket and release. So you'll see you actually want your head tipping, angling down at the end. You can use your hands if you need to support them, and just play with finding where you want to be on the bolster, scooching up and back a little bit so that your back feels really good. So you can actually be here in a way that creates tension in the back. You want to adjust so that you don't feel that tension. It feels so good. Okay, so those are your forward fold options. Okay, let's talk inversions. The inversion that we do in restorative is Viparita Karani, or feet up the wall. And there is a restorative version of it that I want to show you, as well as another modification using our fabulous chair that you can do. Now, with this pose, do know that if you have any issues where extra pressure in the eyes is dangerous, like a detached retina or any other eye issues, then this pose is totally contraindicated for you. Do not do it. If you have high blood pressure, but you're tracking it or it's medicated to normal, then try it and just see how it goes. It is traditionally contraindicated, but I will tell you that there's actually some baroreceptors in your neck that seem to actually modify high blood pressure and bring it down when you go up into feet up the wall, but everyone is a little different. So my students, if they have high blood pressure, I only let them do this if they also can measure their blood pressure afterwards to make sure that they're okay. Everybody who's ever done it has always felt like it was something that was helpful for them. So decision is yours to make. Be sure you take care of yourself. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is if you are menstruating, sometimes taking your feet up above your hips feels funny. So inversions are generally contraindicated when you're on your cycle. However, it really is your hips above your heart, not your feet above your heart, that is the issue. So I always tell people, just keep your hips down. I'm going to show you a variation where you lift your hips up, but you can also just keep your hips down on the floor. Take your feet up, see how it feels. And if it doesn't feel right for you, and the best way I can describe is it feels like fingernails on a chalkboard. You're just like, this is just wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. That's the feeling you're looking for, you're looking to not have, then come out and it's not for you. Definitely keep your hips off of the blanket though. All right, so I'll show you the blanket variation. So this is the plank fold. You can do one or two. I'm going to do two just so you can see a little bit better. I'll make it a little bit more dramatic so you can see what we're trying to do here. You take it away from the wall, so it's about a block distance away. So you can even slip your block in there and space it, because you want your hips to go over on the other side of it. So let me show it to you. To get up, it's a little less than totally graceful, so I will do my best. And the microphone always gets a little mucked up here. So you just come right to the edge. You can see I'm sitting on it, and I'm going to flip around and bring my legs up like so. And I just scooch to the wall so that, if you can see, my hips are actually tipping over the side a little bit, so there's like rounding here. Okay, that's what we want. We don't want this feeling, if you can see. So I'm sinking now into the gut. That's not what you want. And all you need to do to adjust, isn't this graceful, is you just bend your knees and lift up, and then you can move the blanket around. And I'm telling you, you'll feel it. You'll go, oh yeah, that feels much better. I don't think I've ever had a student that I've adjusted that doesn't say, oh yeah, that does feel better. So you'll know. Just move it around a little bit and find that spot that feels the best. So again, if you're on your cycle, definitely don't use the blankets, and just test it with your hips on the floor and see how it feels for you. It might feel good, and it might not be the best thing. Okay, now, if this is just not an option, sometimes you don't have a wall, sometimes it just doesn't feel right, then you can use a chair. And all you have to do, pretty self-explanatory, I'm guessing. Feet up in the chair. Think you can figure that one out? But I'll show it to you anyway. Just like that. And it's more gentle, too, because you're not in that full 90 degree, right? This is just a gentler, relaxing way to do it. And I'm telling you, you can also do this feet up the bed, doing it up on the bed before bed. This is incredibly calming. This pose is so good for your nervous system. I will also just put my feet up the headboard before bed and just help myself relax a little bit before I turn out the light, just as a really nice transition between day and sleep. And that brings us to Shavasana. Now, I generally add a few extra props for myself when I do Shavasana after restorative, because I like to do a little longer Shavasana, and when I teach it, I definitely do a longer one. So you want to make sure you're really comfortable, because you don't want to get halfway through Shavasana and realize, oh, you know what, I'm not feeling really great, because you're not going to relax as much. And you'll definitely want to consider putting a blanket over you, or just making sure you're warm enough. Again, my students actually have these really wonderful chenille gloves and socks that they wear, and they have their restorative garb, so to speak, that they bring to restorative class. So what I recommend is that lift underneath your legs, even if you normally don't need it, just to give yourself that little bit of added something to make you feel good. And then coming down, giving yourself a pillow, just a little one. You never want the pillow to lift you, because you can see how that affects the alignment of your spine, and that's not good for Shavasana, right? We're calming the nervous system. We want the spine to be aligned, because that's its calmest place to be, right? So I will roll the end just enough to give support to my cervical spine without actually lifting it up. And you can also tuck the edges in to create this cradle for your head. Oh, it's just so calming. It's really, really wonderful. And then an eye bag is very appropriate right here. Now, I do want to show you really quick this option with the bolster that is heavenly. And that is, if you have a bolster, and you can actually do this with a blanket too. It's not quite as effective. You can use a block, or you can also use your blanket to tip it. And then the nice thing about the blanket is it gives support to the calves too. And you just get that much more. It's just wonderful. I think I could just stay here for a very long time. And that's what you want to feel. Now, one last thing before I end, because I just did exactly what I don't want you to do. And that is coming out of each of the poses. So you want to come out with intention, every single pose that you come out of. And I'll show you what I do when I teach. And then when I do teach it, so if you join me for a live class, then I'll take you through it. But this is how we come out every time, because when you come up, you can either continue calming the nervous system, or you can re-stimulate it. So remember, your nervous system is your spine and your brain. What you lead with gets stimulated. So if you get up, as I did a moment ago, like this, you're leading with your brain, you're stimulating it. And even when you do this, you can feel like it's a little bit of a strain. It's definitely stimulating. Instead, what we do, bend the knees, roll to one side, you make a pillow with your bottom arm, use your top hand, and you turn your head down, Rest your forehead on the hands. So not only are we calming the nervous system because we're turning the head down, but you're resting on your forehead, and that pressure on your forehead is calming for the nervous system. And you just take a few breaths here. And when you're ready, you press up with your top hand. Let your head hang. Keep your eyes closed. Head stays down. Come up to sitting. And you just take a moment to feel the effects of that pose, to really tune into your body. And then you go to the next one. It's really amazing how far that can take your whole practice. It can change everything. It's awesome. All right. I think I've shared everything I want you to know about restorative yoga. I really hope you choose to join me at my live online studio. As of this recording, I teach restorative yoga at least once a month, usually on a Friday night, because it's really nice to let go of your week and come into your weekend with more relaxation, more intention. Is just a beautiful thing. And it's a really fun community. But if not, I hope this helps you take your restorative a little bit further, makes it a little bit bigger, more powerful, more effective. Namaste.